I'm Shane Buettner, and I'm the co-founder of a company called Mibs Distro, a hi-fi distribution company. And I also run I'm the founder and the boss of a premium vinyl record reissue company called Intervention Records. So I have a big analog footprint in this business, so to speak.
Very cool. And how did you get into hi-fi?
How did I get into hi-fi? So I've always loved music. My mom was very young when I was born. She was just 17. And she and my uncle got me into a lot. You know, I listened to music when I was like everybody growing up, but in particular, like in the early 70s, like a lot of rock and roll and stuff that was popular at the time. And, you know, that never left me. And then when I was somewhere around 19 or 20 years old, an old roommate of mine took me to a real legit high-end stereo store. And I saw and heard a big system with panel speakers that were, I think they were taller than I was at the time, or maybe I'm just remembering it that way, and a VPI TNT turntable. And it looked and sounded like nothing I'd ever experienced before, right? And they played, they played Also Sprach Zarathustra, which I was like, oh, that's the music from 2001: A Space Odyssey. Oh my God. I've never heard it sound that way. And then they did the same thing with Pink Floyd, you know, Time, with the clocks and all the chimes, and then that and the music. And it was just this emotional transportation that like I'd never experienced before. And honestly, the bug never left.
Amazing. And what inspired you to start Mibs?
I'm not employable by anybody else, so I had to start my own companies. I totally can't be domesticated anymore. So, no, you know, it was a happy group of circumstances. One of the brands that my company represents is Lyra. They're a company based in Japan that makes high-end phono cartridges. They were our first client, and I've got a relationship with the principals there going back almost 25 years now. And it just, you know, the bottom line is one of those things, a confluence of events made sense for all of us to go into business together back in 2022. And I already knew them and knew their line intimately. And I have just been so fortunate in this business because through the entire, you know, so I started on the editorial side. I used to write about this stuff, and I was a writer and editor, ended up being the editor-in-chief of Home Theater Magazine for a few years. And then I jumped the fence, so to speak. But I've been so lucky because all the companies I've worked with have been brands whose products I've always wanted and used in my own system and paid my own money for. And I just keep falling into these situations where I get to work with wonderful people who make wonderful products. And our other products that we're showing off here are SAT's record player system and pickup arm, you know, with Lyra. We've got to work with a company based in India called EBI Audio, which stands for Engineering Beyond Imagination. They make phono cartridges as well. And then here today, our debut at the show here this weekend is a active isolation from a company called Seismian based in Germany. You know, and again, once again, they're kind of new friends, but they already feel like old friends. Again, I'm just very lucky. I like things to be chill, and I like to work with people I really like. And I'm just so fortunate that I get to do that all the time.
Amazing. And what's one of your favorite albums that you're currently listening to?
That I'm currently listening to. I love that question because I am one of those people who has piles and piles of records all over his house that I haven't listened to yet, but there's a few of them that have showed up recently that I have been playing the start out of, and some of it goes back to that old roommate in college, because he and my other old roommate were the two people who really got me into Black Sabbath. And a mastering engineer that I work with recently remastered a couple of Black Sabbath records, the debut and then Paranoid, and that was an absolute delight. And then the other one in a modern world, right? David Rawlings and Jillian Welch just put out an album called Woodlands. They recorded it analog to tape, and it's this brand new record, beautifully pressed, and it's called Woodland Studio or something like that. And it sounds like something that just came from the golden era of analog recording, because that's what they did. They did it in the old ways. So as an analog guy, you have to, and the fact that the music's wonderful has got to be paramount, right? Because if it just sounds great, that'll get you through a couple of listens, but you know, when the music is as essential as what I think those two do, a whole other level.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your story, Shane.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.